All right. Hey guys, we're going to talk today about time management strategies. This is a topic that I typically reserve for my students in my fitness management class. Some of these strategies that I've implemented have come through a combination of some business coaching and a combination of some programs that I did with a company called eMyth, as well as a book called Getting Things Done, which is now it's maybe almost 10 years old, maybe even older, but it still, I think, stands the test of time. I'm going to talk about that as we get into it. Definitely, we're going to be able to kind of scrape the surface of this topic, but I think it's definitely worth at least watching the TED Talk on this, and then also, which I can kind of direct you to on YouTube, and then also reading his book. I think would be a really good recommendation to get started if you think this is an area where you could use the help. So, let's like we usually start all of these lunch and learns, why the topic that we're going to talk about. So why time management and self-organization? This is from a fitness standpoint, a nutrition standpoint, but it also could be from a work and productivity standpoint. At the end of the day, if you really break down what we value things like money and success and, our family and friends and all of those things. To be honest, they all do have an expiration, and when we look at time, that's the one thing that we could never get back. And I think it's not something that we think about on a regular basis, but if you, not to get too deep here right off the bat in the first minute of this presentation, but it is the one thing that we can't get back, that we're never going to have this moment back again. So, one of the ways I start presentations sometimes is, hey, you're choosing to spend your time watching this right now. And I really appreciate that, because again, you're never going to get this moment back. So you're, showing that you value what we're about to learn. And hopefully it does lead to some exponential change in the future. Now, we can also kind of look at time as this linear approach, which is what I think we mostly do. It's like every minute that we're trying to be productive and doing things, whether it's going for a training session and spending a specific amount of time on that thing, that's a very, very linear way to look at time, where I think sometimes if we step out of it and think of time a little bit more of like an infinite kind of perspective, I think that will really help. And the ways to do that is to get yourself out of your own head, which sometimes can help through meditation. So I would ask you to go back and watch the morning routine strategies, lunch and learn, to help with that kind of thing. Because sometimes, especially in the time that we're in right now, we can get super stressed about time. Things that we need to do for work, things that we need to do for family, things that we want to do to take care of ourselves. We feel like we run out of time a lot of times. So these are the problems that kind of come up. Playing victim, I think we're kind of, like I said, those things, work, family, things for our health, where sometimes it's those things can kind of run the show, rather than realizing that we are responsible for how we spend our time. Now that's hard to say when you have two little kids, as I do, kind of trying to grab at your time, and you want to be a good dad or a good parent, and you want to do the right thing. It gets difficult. But at the same time, there are ways that you can redirect their energy and be able to kind of get yourself focused in the moment, so that you can be there for them in your best way. So, that's one of the things that, as much as sometimes life comes at us fast and we have all these things going on, at the end of the day, we have to get out of that victim mentality. If we're thinking that everything is happening to us rather than we have control over some things, not everything, I think that really will help with our time management. One of the big things that I see in a lot of my students that I teach is lack of tracking. They really don't spend any time going back and looking at how they're spending their time. If you don't go back and look at how you're spending your time, you really don't know what the things what things you would need to maybe change. I've used the analogy before on these lunch and learns about training. If you come to me and you say, hey, I'm not getting results, and I ask you what you've been doing for the last 3 weeks, it's really hard for me to design a program, because I don't know what you've done. So we want to try to get, people starting to write things down and get them to get an idea of how they're spending their time on a regular daily basis. And then there's no system. When you don't have a system of how things are coming into your life and where you're going to put them, everything is kind of top priority. And I think that's a place where you're never going to have enough time because you're always going to have something to do. So if I constantly have, let's say I'm constantly checking my email all day, I could spend all day doing that. I could be in my inbox and answering people and not really get to any of the objectives that I want to by the end of the day. I could do that for 15 hours today and just keep answering people and all the different things that are going on, and never really get to anything that I need to do. So then we have this idea of multitasking. Can we really multitask? Can you put your attention on something, that, fully at 100% on one thing and on another thing at the same time? I don't think you can. I mean, you can do things that you can do on autopilot, like driving and listening to music at the same time, but those are two activities that are pretty mundane. They're not something that you really need to focus on. They're not something that you need to bring your entire self to. So I think there are times where you might be doing two things at the same time and your attention is split, but though I hope those aren't the things that are important. Things like spending time with family, things like working on a work project, or things like taking care of your health and meditation, if we're going to be doing some of those things in the morning. And then trying for perfection. I think that's another area where it kind of, you end up thinking that you're going to be able to answer everybody and be able to get back to every single phone call that you get. It's just not the case. There's not enough hours in the day for you to kind of move forward on your goals if you're going to let everybody else dictate your time. So you can't be perfect with this. You've got to just think of everything in 2 to 3 minute blocks. What can I do right now to move the dial and get things moving, rather than trying to think of, how perfect I can get every single interaction with people or every single task that I want to do. There are some tasks that I'm going to want to put, those high priority things I'm going to want to be done right. But when it comes to everything, I can't do everything perfect. It's just not going to be the case. Okay. And then that brings us to our time management strategy. So I mentioned at the start, Getting Things Done by David Allen. The concept of his idea, and it's, getting things done, he says, it's not even about getting things done. It's about getting things off your mind. So we have all these things pinging our attention, whether it's email, it's phone calls, it's projects that we have on our mind, it's things we need to remember. Those things are kind of, and he uses this term, psychic bandwidth. It's holding up psychic space in your mind that you need to be, if you're trying to focus on a project, let's say, and you have those 5 or 10 or 100 other things running in the back of your mind, you're not really fully engaged in the thing that you're doing. So his whole practice is to try to create a system to get things out of your mind into a system that you can trust. The best example for this is, and I'm sure you've done this at some point, if you've taken, you need to remember, let's say, your keys or your lunch or something you need to bring to work, and you put it by the door the night before so that you remember to grab it on the way out. It's the equivalent of that in some type of maybe email system or some type of calendar system, so that you know that you're going to do the thing when you look at that system. So that example of being able to pick something up on the way out the door so that you remember it, you're planting the thing in the place so that you don't have to think about it, right? Because you're going to walk out that door the next day and it's going to be there. So therefore now it's off your mind. So the work equivalent of that would be something like, if you get an email and you don't have time to deal with it right then and there, where does it go? Does it just, does your inbox just keep piling up and you just keep letting these things sit in the inbox? Or do you maybe take that email, spend a minute to say what your next action is on that thing, and then put it into a system where you're going to see it at that later date when you're going to need to act on it? There may be a few different things that you have to do with it. You might need to throw it away, get it out of your system completely. Second thing is, you might need to do it right now. It might be an emergency. You might have to make a phone call or do something quickly. Like, I'm not saying you just put everything off. And then there's that third bucket, which is like, this is important, but I can't do this right now, because if I'm just doing everything every second of the day, I'm never going to get to my stuff. So it's tagging it with what the next action is on that item, and then putting it in the system so that you're going to see it at the appropriate time. Now that takes time to set that up, because you've got to have either a calendar where you're setting it at a later date, or a project list where maybe it gets bucketed with things that you're working on for a specific project. Maybe it's a health related thing or a nutrition related thing. Maybe there's a place where you put all that so that you see it at a specific time. But if you don't have set things on a schedule where you're going to maybe look at that folder that has all the health stuff, or the folder that has the project list, if you're never going to look at it, it's not on your calendar, it won't ever get done. So it's really about creating a system you can trust, like the system of having something at your doorway that you're going to see on the way out to work. Figure out the equivalent of that in your workspace. It might be a physical workspace where you're actually just taking a sheet of paper and writing down the notes and putting it in an inbox, or putting it in a folder that you're going to look at a specific time. Or it could be, for me, I personally use Evernote. I put everything into my inbox in Evernote, and then I process that through and put things in the calendar when they need to be done, or I associate them with a specific project, or I just get rid of it if it's something that I know that I'm not going to be able to act on. There's another bucket of things that I have that's called someday maybe. Hey, this would be nice to do, but I don't know that I'm going to have time to do it right now. If there's ever comes a time where I'm going to look through that someday maybe folder, maybe I will get those things done. Then there's also, how would you even have time to set up a system like this? I think putting on a calendar one strategic hour a day. I talk about this with my students. They spend time going to class, they spend time working out, they spend time hanging out with friends. Like most of them in 4 years of college, they never do any strategic work. They're only just learning the content and getting the information and education. Strategic work would be more like maybe researching some of what needs to be done to get into the field that they're looking to get into. Reaching out to people who maybe have done what they want to do and setting up a type of mentorship situation. So, thinking strategically for at least a half hour, but preferably an hour once a day, and putting it on your schedule. And that's a time where you can't answer emails, you can't take phone calls. It's just 1 hour, say it's 1 to 2 p.m., where you're only working on strategic things during that hour. If you don't know what to work on during your strategic hour, spend the first hour trying to think about what you would work on that would help you strategically long term, right? So that's one of the quick tricks, because a lot of times people start this and they're like, I don't know what I would do. I'm just so used to being busy, busy, busy. And you're in someone else's world. You're doing someone else's work. You're just doing the bidding of every email and call that comes in. So then the last thing here, another strategy that I like to use is batching tasks and leaning on technology. So the technology is not great for everybody, but I think at least batching tasks is going to be a good one to add in here. And the idea behind batching tasks is having a set time when you make phone calls. So, if I just answer the phone all day, and there are certain calls that are going to come in that I'm going to need to take. But most of the time, a phone call that comes in is not incredibly urgent. It might be urgent to the person that's calling, but it's not. If I just do that all day, I'm just going to be answering everybody else. So I'll set a time, say it's 3 o'clock, between 3 and 3:30 or 3 and 4. That's where I'm going to batch those phone calls. There's a time that I batch. I have an hour a day where I go through the inbox. If I don't put that on my schedule, then I won't trust the system to do it, right? So those are some of the strategies that I'll use to create time. And I'll use the technology like Google Calendar, so I can get it on my phone. I can get it on my computer. It's available to me at my fingertips at any time, so I can see what I'm supposed to be doing at that time. I don't like relying on my willpower to do anything, whether that be working out or answering emails or doing the strategic work, even doing these lunch and learn calls. I set it on my calendar, and then I let my calendar tell me to do it, right? I use this analogy a lot of times with my fitness classes at the college. I talk about priority lists. Having a time in the morning, maybe it's 7 a.m. to do 15 minutes of a daily priority meeting with yourself, When I do that, fitness, working out for me, with family responsibilities, the business responsibilities, the teaching responsibilities, all the other recreational things that I would love to be doing, um, training, lifting weights, doing cardio, doing corrective exercise never scratches top 10 in my priorities on a daily basis. So if I look at a day, there's no way that that's important. But if I look at a month, then it becomes more important. Like I need to get 10, 15, 20 workouts a month to feel like I'm accomplishing something. Now, workouts might be corrective exercise. It might be doing a little bit of resistance training, maybe some body weight stuff. It doesn't have to be, this really intense thing unless I have a specific goal for performance or a specific goal for a physique challenge. The idea here is, and the point why I bring this up is, I want to put those workouts in the calendar in advance, because I don't want to rely, if I think of any moment right now, like I have 100 other things I want to get done, but if it's on my calendar, I'm going to let the calendar tell me what to do. So it's almost like I'm mailing myself a note in the future to tell me, you need to do this at this time, because that's the only way you're going to get at least 10, 12, 15 workouts in this month. So, you're setting appointments with yourself. Eileen, I know you go to the classes, you're pretty religious about hitting your 9:30 every single day. That helps because you have a set time, you're going to do it. I'm trying to convince everybody here to do that, not only with your workouts, but to do it with any of your tasks that that you need to do. Also know energy levels, and I'll kind of end with this. I want to do my strategic work earlier in the day, right after coffee, when I'm fresh. I don't want to do that kind of stuff at like that, 2:33, 4:00 energy lull. You got to know yourself. Now you might be more energetic at that time, or you might be more energetic at night and you feel more creative at night. So it's kind of like knowing yourself and knowing when you're going to be most productive, and then setting up your day around that. And think about it this way. Let's say you're not productive in the morning. You know what? Maybe in the morning you do a workout, you go for walks, and don't stress that you're not getting anything done. Like I know that, like, especially right now with everything that's going on, being stuck in the house, and my wife needs to be doing some work for school, so I need to be taking care of the kids while she's doing that. Like if I didn't have a calendar and a structure right now, and something that said, hey, at noon I'm going to have this lunch and learn, and then from 1:00 to 5:00 I'm just going to go straight through on work. If I didn't know that I had that block of time, I would be stressed all morning, and that would affect how I'm engaging with my kids and affect how I'm living in that moment. So the whole point of these strategies are to really just be fully, like, appropriately engaged in the activities that you're doing. If you're, now is more than ever is a time where I think people are kind of being pulled in all directions all day long. I know that there have been some days over the last week and a half where that's happened for me. And getting back to the schedule always helps. So, hopefully that's been helpful. Hopefully that makes sense. Do you guys have any questions on that? I know I kind of jumped around a little bit, and I think I may even do like a kind of film something about that for right now and post that, because I think that's a huge deal for people, is trying to navigate through, like, how do I I spoke to somebody yesterday. She's training, teaching, homeschooling 2 14-year-olds right now while she's running her business. It's like, how do you do that? Like, and not go insane right now with what's going on. So, I think the only way to do it is setting those times where you can relax about it and not stress out with all the calls and things coming in, if you have a time that you're going to get back on schedule. So, anything you guys have?
No questions, just more of a comment that This is pretty helpful, because this is like these 2 weeks off. It's the first time I've caught up on everything. So now it's like, well, what the hell do I do? And now I just trying to figure out like what to do with like some strategic planning and things like that. Trying to block it off and create some sort of schedule. I think trying to do that would be super helpful.
Yeah, I don't know about you, but that's, for me, it's like, if I don't have it on a schedule, like, you could just easily just the day goes, and hour by hour everything changes, versus like I said, mailing yourself the appointment almost, like, hey, you're going to work on this at this time,
Yeah.
So this way you can be focused on other things throughout the rest of the day and not get so,
Mhm.
get worried that you're not doing what you should be doing. you know
Yeah.
I think that's where a lot of stress comes from, is where people, they're busy and they have responsibilities that they know they need to take care of, but they're thinking about the other things that their responsibility, that they're supposed to be doing. um, Having a calendar and this kind of thing, and just telling yourself, like, I don't have to be, you can't do everything all day long at the same time. And by the way, I think I mentioned this to a certain extent, you can't do everything that's going to come into your world either. Like,
Mhm.
we're inundated by everything. I mean, if you tried to read every email that you got, how would you do that? Like, but yeah, I'm talking not just emails from people, but ads and like, it's
Oh yeah.
hundreds every day. So, you're going to miss stuff. You have to be okay with that. And that goes back to
Right.
that perfection thing. So how about you, Eileen? How have you
Well,
been doing?
I usually have a calendar, like I set aside time for certain things, if I
Hmm.
know I have an appointment here or there.
Yeah.
And but I do get distracted and overwhelmed when, like you said, you phone calls start coming in and oh my
Hmm.
gosh, you want to answer them, but
Hmm.
sometimes like you just said, you can't get to everyone. But
Hmm.
those are the little things I know I could do to improve on. But
Yeah.
I think this is an excellent topic, and yeah, it helps a lot. It's good.
Yeah. Good. All right. Good.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Yeah, I went a little longer than I was expecting to, but I keep doing that.
Okay, this
It's
is a
all
good one.
good.
what's
It's all
what's that,
good.
Greg?
This is a good one though. This is one that
Good.
I think that I struggle with and
Hmm.
definitely
All right. Cool.
taking the time for. So it's a good thing.
I may put together a little bit more of a polished version of this, so keep an eye out for that, because I think as I was doing it, I'm like, this is so relevant for right now for people,
Yeah.
just to keep their like mental health. So I'll post this. I'm in the process of posting all these, and you'll get an email when they're all posted. But then I think I may even do something less with like with the resource of David Allen and that kind of stuff, but just kind of talking more about um, that idea of when you're engaged with the thing, like the stuff that you're doing during the day, like being okay with letting the other stuff go.
Mhm.
And if you have a system for it, you'll feel better about it.
Right.
So, all right.
Yeah.
Good
Thanks.
stuff.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Ray.
you
It's
got it,
great.
guys. All right. If anything comes up, just shoot me an email. We're off tomorrow from Lunch and Learn, so we're only doing Monday through Thursday. I'm gonna look to get some more experts on next week, so it won't just be me. And then we will have the happy hour tomorrow night. So 4:30 tomorrow. I
Looking
know you're
forward
not doing anything, so
to it.
Yay. Okay, I'm
I'll
gonna get
see you
my
guys.
bottle ready.
Okay, sounds
Thank
good.
You
you.
guys
Have a good
All
day.
right. Bye,
Bye-bye.
guys. Okay.
Leave, leave.